Hello, denizens of the universe. My name is Romance Scrooge, or rather, my pseudonym is Romance Scrooge, and joining me today is
the Artistic Alpaca.
And before we get started on talking about monster love, we'd like to announce an upcoming convention. Take it away, Alpaca.
Yes, in Cookeville, Tennessee, at the Millard's Oakley STEM Center at Tennessee Technological University, there is going to be a convention called Omni-Con. It is hosted by our local college club called Alpha Sci-Fi, and it is going to be on March 24th, 2018. We're going to have cosplay guests, special guests, writers, authors, vendors, panelists, and just all sorts of fun, and it's all hosted by the club Alpha Sci-Fi. Admission is $5. If you're a student, it's $2. And if you're a volunteer, panelist, or vendor, it is free. So you should come on out. That's all I've got.
Okay. Well, you have a couple of vendors that are confirmed. Why not bring them up? Maybe describe some of their work or what the con's been like in the past.
This is actually a pretty considerably small con compared to others in the area because it is hosted by a local community club rather than like Eventbrite or something. And the vendors that we have confirmed are myself, obviously, and a lovely little artist named Ellie Batson, who is known as Sketches and Scales on Tumblr. She does a lot of sculpting and comic book work, as well as cute anthropomorphic work. And we have a vendor who's also a cosplayer named Sparrow Moose. And they're actually known for a lot of their drag show work. And they're going to be selling prints and stuff for their cosplays at the convention. We're also going to have, hold on, I'm having to look at the Google spreadsheet. I'm sorry.
Oh, no big deal. No big deal, man.
I had it open and I guess I closed it on accident. We're also going to have some guests. We have 3 guests that have confirmed. We have Ken Stellar, who is a cosplayer from Nashville. She is best known for her Undyne cosplay, and if you haven't seen it, you need to go check it out, which also relates to our subject matter for today. We have Cosplay Incorporated, and they are known for their vehicles that are based on video games and movies, like their Scooby-Doo van and their Fallout vehicles. And of course, we have Cosplay Castaboros and Ask Cosplay Senpai, and they are known for their Doctor Who stuff. And they're going to be guests at the convention, and we still have a few more that we're waiting to be confirmed. And hopefully, we'll have a nice little lineup for everyone this convention.
Definitely. As convention stuff progresses and gets updated, if you're available next week, Alpaca, why not open Headcanon Hive with more updates on who's coming, what's all going on, and that kind of thing?
That would be a really good idea. My parents. Oh shit. That's a mess. Sorry about that. But yeah, I can do that. And of course, we have a Facebook page and a Tumblr that I'm going to be updating as time goes on with announcements and stuff. Right now, we have the information for vendoring, paneling, and volunteering up. And soon I'll be making announcements for vendors, guests, sponsorships, and the like.
Going to be leaving links for those in the description below as well. Also, want to put this out there, Alpaca is currently looking for potential panelists, volunteers, and such. If you're in the Tennessee area, feel free to reach out.
And this convention lasts from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., so it's not going to be a super short one like most college conventions are. This one's going to last for a pretty long time, because it used to be a 2-day convention, but due to budget cuts, it's been shortened down to 1 day, so.
Alrighty, before we start discussing fish people and such, could we get the location, day, and time for this one more time?
It is in Cookeville, Tennessee, at the Millard Oakley STEM Center at Tennessee Tech University in Cookeville, Tennessee. If you would like to support this convention, just reblog the post on Tumblr and share the Facebook stuff. Just simple little stuff like that helps.
And the date for this is March 24th, 2018, and it goes from
9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay, I just wanted to get that in there one more time. And now, going to start talking about Del Toro's latest live-action movie, The Shape of Water. Not quite sure where to start. Except for really bad fish sticks jokes and the typical.
Abe Sapien fanfiction, the movie. That is honestly the best way to describe this. I know it's based on like a lot of mythology and stuff, including the Wild Man of the Caney Fork River, which is a White County thing. But at the same time, he has a lot of resemblance, like in his story, to Abe Sapien from the Hellboy comics. And honestly, I live for it. And it's like, it was definitely the most refreshing movie that we got this year, because even though it wasn't original, it was portrayed in a way that hadn't been portrayed before on screen, and that's why it did so well. And it's nominated for 13 Oscars. Holy crap. And Del Toro won Best Director and Original Soundtrack at the Golden Globes this year. It was mind-blowing.
That is impressive. I didn't know it'd been nominated for 13. I know it'd been nominated for a few, but that many?
Mm-hmm. And it's great. And the funny thing is he had expected it to just be very limited. He didn't expect such a positive reception because it is what it is. It's a fairy tale. It's not like it's deep, but it's not like, oh, you can dive right in and make it dramatic and stuff. It's pretty much surface value stuff that's fun and cool, a little bit gory, some of it not needed, but it's just a nice, fun little movie. And it's great. I do want to put one thing, if you don't mind, before we go any further into this, is that I'm going to place a trigger warning. This is not something that I would usually do, but due to the scene that we will probably be discussing, I felt that it's needed. So if you do not like the thought of animal death, when we bring it up, I'll mention it again, but you don't have to listen to that. Just we'll put it in the comments saying like it's over or something. This way you can see when we're done talking about it, because I know a lot of people are sensitive to that kind of thing.
Yeah. After seeing the movie myself, I'd say that that's merited. It's fair. Definitely got quite a upstir on Tumblr, if I remember right.
Yeah, so, it's not as gory as they're making it out to be, but I do understand why they don't like it. Because I didn't like it. And it's not because I didn't think it was needed. It was a very good segue. But I do think, and I know he could have been a little bit more clever about what he did. Because Repo the Genetic Opera, like there's a lot of gore in that, but for a majority of it, they're able to do it through silhouette or off screen. And I know Del Toro could have done that if he really wanted. So, yeah.
Thinking about it, you would have gotten the full impact, or actually, it would have
probably would have been worse,
Yeah, it's just the idea of your imagination painting the visuals and stuff instead. There's just something a little bit more terrifying about leaving that up to viewer interpretation.
Yeah, the book does explain why he does go and eat the cat. And I kind of wish they had explained that better for the film, because I felt that's like one of the plot holes that they left out, is that he has to have a raw protein diet. And around the time when that happens, that's something he hadn't gotten a lot of in his diet. So he, of course, went off and ate the nearest smallest animal. But when he found out what he did was wrong and why it was wrong, he does try to make friends with the cats. And he does try to make up for what he did by, spoiler alert, he has healing powers. And so he heals Giles' cut and helps him regrow his hair.
For some context here, let's just go ahead and describe the cat scene.
Steven, what is it?
Just check on you. Just get toilet paper out of
there. Sorry about that. Steven was making sure I was okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the cat scene. We're gonna go ahead and I guess describe it in a little detail of why it kind of caused an outrage. So trigger warning, since we're going into detail. There's a scene in the movie where the asset gets out of the bathtub and he walks over to the cat and he picks it up and literally eats its head. Just you get to see blood and stuff dripping from his mouth and a decapitated cat. And that wasn't needed. You could have just shown the silhouette of him eating the cat, or even just like the body of the cat limp. There are ways that it could have been done, because I would have rather had seen Giles' reaction to finding the headless cat versus seeing the headless cat, because that would have been a little bit more heartbreaking, I think.
I'd have to agree on that. That particular scene, I know where they were going. The follow-up to the scene was definitely very solid and very well done. I'm just going to go ahead and describe the scene where it... Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. In regards to this scene as a whole, going to give some context here. At this point in the movie, the asset, which is the Fishman, has been liberated, for lack of a better term, from the military complex he was being kept in, and he's being kept in the protagonist's apartment with her friend slash caretaker. Is that a decent way to describe him?
They're best friends.
Okay. She lives in an apartment with her best friend Giles, and he's watching the asset slash the Fishman while she's out at work. Well, the asset is sitting around in the tub. He has to sit in the tub to get his chlorine taken.
Salt water taken, yeah.
Salt water taken. He has to have specific environments and settings in order to survive. He's been sitting in the tub for a couple of days. He wants to get up, wander around, and explore. So he gets out of the tub, wanders out into the apartment. Giles has a couple of cats sitting around. He comes across the cat, and the cat is very suspicious of him. It kind of curls back and hisses at him. This is how the movie portrays it. I'm not quite sure how the book versus movie interpretation goes. So, in the movie, the asset eats the cat, and as Alpaca brought up, apparently, this is part of his diet. The follow-up, when Giles discovers him, they show a very graphic, or a fairly graphic depiction of the asset with the cat. But Giles' reaction isn't what you'd see in other types of media. His immediate reaction is, oh man, I should have been keeping a better eye on this. He didn't mean for things to get out of hand. He's a lot more worried about the asset's emotional state, what he's thinking, how nervous or terrified he must be, in what kind of environment or setting that he is. Things are starting to get a bit tense because, according to the society or taboos that the asset is in right now, it's a big no-no to eat the cat. But Giles tries to calm him down. He reaches out and says, hey, this is okay. I'm trying to help you out. And that's a big takeaway from the scene, that the asset is in a world that he's not supposed to be in, or isn't really quite used to. And the people that liberated him, the people that are keeping him, they're very sympathetic. They understand where he's coming from. They're trying to help him get back to where he originated or came from in the first place. That's really what that scene is establishing, how empathetic and sympathetic Giles and his best friend are. Or rather, Giles' take on things, or the fact that he's a good choice for helping out in this particular situation. Actually, all the protagonists in this movie are very sympathetic, kindly people.
Yeah, it's a story about like all sorts of different love and how love has to come with acceptance. And, you know, with him being what he is and from where he is from, he's sentient like a human, even though he doesn't have the language. But with where he was living and stuff, he didn't necessarily have cats or pets or anything like that. So he was unaware of the situation at the time. And it kind of shows that you need to kind of stop and think about the best in people versus assuming the worst. Because after the scene, he does try and make up for it by helping Giles out with his wound and healing him. And of course, trying to let the other cats know that, oh, I get it, you guys are not food, and I apologize. Because it did scare a couple of the other cats. And the one thing that they left out in the movie that is in the books is that the reason he ended up eating the cat is because he saw food. Because smaller animals like that, like monkeys and stuff, is what his diet would have been based around in the South American Amazons.
Since you brought it up, is the book much different from the movie? I don't really have context for this. I'm definitely want to go out and read the book now, but
I only have cliplets from someone who does the official translations for other areas, and it has a lot of the same stuff in it. Like, it just has more, if that makes sense. It goes into depth better what is going on versus what the movie was allowed to show and portray. So, like, you get to learn about the asset more, and you get to learn his personality, and then you get to learn more about Eliza and where she came from, and Giles and his background. And you find out that Strickland is, unfortunately, he's an asshole to the main characters in the film because he's the antagonist, but he's not necessarily evil. He just he's got his own set of circus monkeys he needs to work on. He's got his own problems that are not out, because he does try to better himself. Like, even in the film, if you notice a lot of the self-help books he's reading, a lot of them are like positive thinking and how to change yourself to be a better person. So, man, he's seen some shit, I think.
What is your take on Strickland in the movie?
I want an AU where he gets his Cadillac and that's all he needed in life and he's a happier person. Because he's an asshole, but he's an asshole that deserved better. Because, man, he is the poster child of depression that he can't figure out. Like, if the unknown depression factor, that is literally him. Because, like, I don't like him for, like, the way that he's portrayed in the movie, but I do, you can understand where he's coming from a lot of the time, and you're just like, ugh, I hate this, but I get it. I hate it, but I get it so hard. And I do have to give him 1 gold star for openly saying, in the 1960s, to a black woman, there's a possibility that God himself could be a black woman. So, gold star for you, Strickland. You deserve that much. But his character is really interesting because you get really frustrated because you can see that he is just doing his job and that, you know, he is trying to change himself throughout the film and be a better person even when he does end up having a couple of slip-ups and being a dick. You're very aware of his situation being relatable, especially if you're the type of person who tends to fall into those sort of patterns. So it's got a lot of representation in the film, not just for people who are people of color, LGBT, or even disabled people, but there's people who have mental states that might kind of like understand the film a little bit better too because of that. I guess that's the best way to put it. I'm not good with words today.
I'd say you tackled that pretty well. The only reason I was asking for your take on Strickland is that when I watched through this movie, I wasn't quite sure what to think of him.
He's a sympathetic villain a little bit. He's doing his job. He wants to do it well. He's trying to change himself throughout the film, and it does show that in the film by the self-help books. But he's, like I said, there's something else going on that they didn't really touch it with Strickland, I think, because he's definitely more three-dimensional than how they were able to play him off. And since it is Michael Shannon, you know that the characters he plays usually have interesting intentions, because he did play Zod and Superman, I think. Yeah, for the most part. I just wish that they could have covered more in the movie.
Definitely. From what you got of Strickland, you only have so many shots and interpretations to work with. The way it was set up, the impression I got was that he was a radical contrast to the leads. He was the stereotypical or average American man on the surface because they went out of their way to put a lot of emphasis on the Cadillac. He has the high-profile car. He's a big man in charge. He was kind of brusque when he first introduced himself. He has a stereotypical American family and kids at home that he's trying to support. You have this pitted against the lead, who is a mute woman, a gay older fellow that's struggling to continue his career in the art world, and even Zelda, a very outspoken, assertive Black woman. Characters that are they're not the norm. But as you follow them, all three of them are connected in some kind of way. Like, they get along very well, even though they're on the fringes of society or not really mainstream, or not really part of, well, you get where I'm going with this. They get along
the undesirables
well,
of the time.
Yeah, they manage to find some kind of camaraderie or relatability in each other.
It's like another character that I think deserved a lot better than what he got in the film is Dmitri. He is the Russian scientist that helped Eliza free the asset.
Yeah, they did not give him enough screen time. He was a pretty major player in the story. You got bits and pieces of what was going on with him, and you know what he's doing. You get the basic play-by-play points, but that's a character that definitely deserved more screen time, and I can definitely see he probably had a much bigger role in the book.
Yeah, I can't wait till the official release comes out, because with the information I have that's already expanded this world, I gotta know.
Same
and yes,
here.
There is a character named Zelda. Looking at the comments.
I'll admit, I was one of those people that as soon as I first heard her name, I thought Legend of Zelda 2 and started thinking about blonde elven princess.
Hey, you want to hear the best part? A lot of people do Shape of Water fan art with Link inside on, and Del Toro has retweeted a bunch of it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, shout out to our nerds. But yeah, I really like the characters. But like I said, I wish they could have done a little bit more than what they had. Like, I would have been willing to sit through a 2.5-hour movie if they had been able to expand a little bit more. But, I mean, other than that and the cat scene, that's really my only gripes with this film. And, like, yeah, that's it. That's my only gripes. There's nothing for me to really narc on other than nitpicking. Because, like, the special effects and stuff were very minimal. Every time that you see the asset, that's Doug Jones in a suit.
That was pretty much all practical effects, wasn't it?
Yep. That's what Del Toro is known for, is his practical effects. It's like, his practical effects are so well known that even Weta kind of looks up at him, just like, whoa, we got schooled again.
Man, kind of wish more movies would take a couple of notes from Del Toro and start incorporating more practical effects, because thinking about all the scenes with Doug Jones as a fish man, very, very well done and executed. He was incredibly convincing.
Yeah, and what I really like, too, that no one on Tumblr seems to heckin' get, is that the asset actually did have a personality, but it wasn't portrayed with, like, much with noises or anything like that, but with how he moved and how he signed. Like, there is a scene in the film where Eliza is mopping the floor, and she's kind of dancing along to the music, and the bucket hits the tank that he's in, and she signs, "Are you okay?" And he signs back, yes, with a nod, because he seemed to be enjoying watching her have fun. Oh yeah, there's a whole discourse on Tumblr for The Shape of Water that I don't want to touch on, because as someone who falls into the same line with Eliza and Giles, it kind of just makes me very angry.
Yeah, not going to touch on that. We're just gonna discuss what we want to discuss here.
Yes, I'm going to say this. According to Del Toro, the asset is 100% sentient. He has his own mind like a human. He can think and talk like a real human eventually. He is sentient. Any discourse that tries to use him being a wild man as a way to say, oh, he can't make his own decisions is bullshit.
What? There's people... The entire point of Eliza making her big plea to Giles was that this is a sentient humanoid. This is somebody with rights that's being violated and mistreated. That was the entire point.
Yep. That's one of the discourses. The other discourse I'm not going to touch on. Because, like, I understand for people who are just viewing it without any context, it would seem that way, but when someone tells you and shows you clips of Del Toro saying, the fishman can consent, the point of this film is about human rights and violation, and, you know, other things that are also very important. You need to listen to the man. Let him have this.
I went in without knowing any of this. I went in thinking, hey, this is a love story this is an interspecies love story. It seemed pretty clear-cut to me. I mean... Yeah,
I know, but people have to dig and find stuff that isn't really there. I hate to say it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I wanna go off on a bit of a tangent about this. The way that the movie is set up... If you are going to have... Or if someone was going to set up a movie about an interspecies romance where the other partner wasn't completely sentient, it would not be set up the way that Del Toro set up this movie. It has a B horror movie romance kind of vibe to it. It's corny, it's kind of cheesy. The way that the Fishman is set up, he comes across as somebody with the entire reason Eliza reaches out to him, or that they form some kind of connection or bond, is because she even makes a point about this. He sees her as just another human being. It's the first time she's been recognized as an individual without her disability coming up.
Mm-hmm.
The way that this is portrayed, it seems pretty obvious to me that the Fishman is sentient. That if someone takes the time to sit down and try to figure out some kind of communication, the issue is communication. Not... that just...
Yep. It's literally a language barrier. That's the biggest plot point in this movie. Very much like with The Little Mermaid, which is kind of what it is. It's an inverted Little Mermaid story. And no one seemed to have an issue with that, you know. Okay, so do you feel that... Okay, so I'm looking at the comment skin. The cartoon critic asked, so do you feel that the cat scene was unnecessary? It was unnecessary in the way it was portrayed, if that makes sense. Like I said, they could have done something a little bit more clever. Now, the second comment... question is, so would you guys recommend this film? Yes. Yes.
Very much yes.
It's a very good film.
Heck, one of the biggest reasons I'd recommend going to see it is because of some of the cinematography choices and how they set up the visuals and stuff. I really like the opening montage where you're introduced to Eliza and how they implement stuff like egg timers. They kind of hint at a few things about her connection to the water, with the opening scene being her having a dream about water. It's kind of surreal. Just some of the things that they clue you in about the characters and setting and such through cinematography choices, cuts. It's incredibly clever.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the soundtrack so much. I really want to get the art book. If I had the money, I would be buying the art book because I want to see the concepts behind this, because I bet those are gorgeous.
Oh, definitely.
And it's got this very unusual nostalgia factor too. Like, it's really difficult to describe, but it's like watching... It's like, you know, when you're little and your parents might put on like one of those old-timey 1940s monster movies because they weren't really violent. You know what I'm saying? And they would play that for Halloween because it was kid-friendly. It's got that sort of vibe, and it makes me so happy.
What I find interesting is that they were able to capture this particular vibe, like with that scene where Eliza was daydreaming about dancing and singing with the asset. That scene was bittersweet, but it played into the corniness and tongue-in-cheek vibe that you get from the entire movie. But unlike just going for a baseline, this is a 1940s aesthetic and theme, they managed to show, or convincingly portray it too. Like, bring up some social commentary, bring up this isn't an entirely rosy time. Like, bring up a couple of the problematic things that be in a time like that. Just being able to bring that kind of historical accuracy and weave it with that kind of nostalgia. I was blown away by that, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really great. It's supposed to be like an old nod to cinematography and theater, and that's very apparent throughout the movie too.
Definitely. Now, when I say historically accurate, I don't mean 100%. There's a couple of things that they took creative liberty with, but just the fact that they addressed that this wasn't an entirely rosy time. Like, when you think of other nostalgically fueled projects and how it's just focusing on the big pop culture and stuff at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I really like the small nods here and there, like with the movie poster that the asset touches when he runs away, is the Call of Cthulhu film. And I really also like the small detail with Michael Shannon's fingers slowly rotting away throughout the movie too, because his body's rejecting it.
Oh man, yeah. That detail was brutal.
To put context, there's a scene when Eliza and Zelda are coming down the hallway and Strickland runs out with his fingers gushing blood, and it's because the asset has bit them off. Now, this is funny when you realize that the asset's name in production was Charlie.
Charlie?
Charlie. Because he was nicknamed after Charlie the Tuna, but then someone showed Del Toro the Charlie bit my finger video, and it kind of just became a running joke.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. I think that's probably one of the most cheekily morbid.
It was beautiful.
No other words to describe it. Just
it was great.
I think the next 5 minutes are probably going to be me awkwardly laughing at that now that I know where that came.
I'm glad. And I discovered this because I was looking through the Twitter with like the makeup stuff and whatever, where they were showing off his expressions, and they explained that, oh yeah, Charlie's facial expressions are in working order. And I was just like, wait a minute. And I did some looking around. And it was great. And I was crying the entire time. Del Toro has very small jokes that he likes to hide in his films, and it's always a treat when you find them. Where did Scrooge go?
Sorry, opening door. Didn't want a bunch of squeaking hinges and
That's
stuff.
okay. There's a conversation going on in the chat box between Will and the Cartoon Critic, and Cartoon Critic, I hate to burst your bubble in this way, but the main lead, she does indeed get the fish stick. It's not explicitly shown, but it's very much hinted at. Not only that, you get to see Michael Shannon plowing his wife awkwardly, like a magic carp.
Oh man, that was one of the more.
All the times I went and saw the film, the entire theater was laughing their butts off.
It's kind of hard not to, because you're not really expecting it.
Nah, not at all.
Because when the scene opens, you're thinking like, oh, classic 1940s wholesome family. He's sitting down with the kids and the wife,
And then his wife whips out a titty.
Yeah.
Okay, Will Powell said fish don't have dicks, they have slots. Actually, sharks have two penises, my boy. Two. The slot opens up and there's the penis.
Speaking of which, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is following Eliza's dalliance
escapade
escapade with the fish man, and she has a bit of a conversation about what's down there with her buddy Zelda. So
here, let me. I'm gonna look like trash on this podcast, but let me show you the movements of the hand. So how did he? So Zelda asks, "How did he?" And this is what Eliza does. That is literally the hand movement. It's just open. Poor Will. I think he's dying now. My favorite thing is what Zelda does after seeing that. She's like, Lord, you can't even trust a man, even when he looks flat down there.
Oh my god.
Well, Will, this movie is rated R, so this stuff should come up. I'm just saying. It's not like we're talking about Peter Pan or something. You know, it's not PG or G rated. This is R rated, hard R rated, because there's the word fuck and so much in it. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff in there that you can have fun with, like what we just talked about. But there's also a lot of stuff that hits the home too with a lot of people, I think. Like there's a scene in the film where Giles, he goes down to this pie bakery and he has this piece of artwork, and it's after getting turned down for the second time in the film. And he's talking with this guy and he accidentally reaches out to touch the guy's hand, which is something in today's society we're used to, because if we get super excited, we're used to like touching them lightly or whatever. But back then that was a big deal, especially if it was a man touching another man. So the bakery owner gets really offended and upset, and then two black people walk in and he's like, you guys can't sit down here, everything's reserved, blah blah, and kicks him out. And Giles says, oh hey, you don't have to be like that, and then he proceeds to get kicked out. So before he gets kicked out, he stands up, he spits out the pie, like he makes a big fuss over how nasty it is, and then he leaves. And that is just, whew. But yeah, it's really nice to see a little bit more representation in the media, especially with things like that. Because, wow. And it's really funny. I know at least one person like each character in the film. I have my own Giles. He's an artist and everything. He has like the same sort of facial expressions and has the same sort of like sleeping routine and how he works. And same sort of attitude. And then I have a friend who very much is like Zelda. And I'm usually Eliza in most cases, because I'm very quiet when I'm in public, because the only time that I really talk is through these podcasts. I'm not very talkative unless I need to be. We're not talking about the Peter Pan book, though. All original fairy tales were fucked up. The Little Mermaid, she got her freaking tongue cut out. We don't talk about this.
How about Cinderella, where the stepsisters, there's
cut
a
off
scene.
Chunks of their foots?
Yep.
Yeah. Foots. But yeah, this isn't like a PG-13 movie. This has a lot of heavy stuff in it. And if anyone is surprised the stuff is coming up in this particular stream, that's their problem. I'm sorry. But yes, it's great, and it has a lot of really funny moments too, fun moments in it too. Like, I love how she, like, it shows like a little montage of her finding the escape route. And it's just like Zelda sees her and is like, Lord, what is that girl doing? And I really like the fact that in this film, there is like in the beginning of the film, she is masturbating, and it's not shown as anything gross or dirty or something that women need to apologize for. And it's super positive. Like, this entire film is very sex positive, I've noticed. Like, even Zelda, after finding out about Eliza's escapade with the acid, is very supportive. I think Scrooge went mute again.
Sorry.
It's okay. I was just making sure you were okay.
Eh?
Because you went mute, and I didn't even realize until I was talking. It's like, oh. But yes, there's just so much to love about this film if you're an adult. Or if you're a teenager who goes to public school.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised you're usually very quiet and reserved with your speech. Yeah, but I really love this film, dude. My man, my friend, I love this film, and there needs to be more love for it. Unapologetic love, man. And not just the, like, dude love, man, where you sit around and do nothing about it, but actual good works love. And I really love the fact that this was supposed to be a very limited release, and it got so popular and got so much good feedback that it went worldwide and is in theaters everywhere now, even in smaller towns like my podunk town.
Really glad it got a wider release. It was still fairly limited where I'm at, but 30-40 minutes away isn't bad. I made the drive and went to the specific theater it was at because I really wanted to see this.
Yeah, like, you know, it's going to get more and more as time goes on, because right now it was showing in Cookfoot last week, and that's how I went to see it with my friend Michael. His handle on Instagram is Ald Antler, I think. And he is my Giles. He looks like Giles. And when he saw the film, he's like, God damn it, that's me. Cartoon Critic, if you have seen any of Del Toro's past works like Blade 3, Pan's Labyrinth, or even the Hellboy films, this runs along the same lines as that. It's just a little bit more out there. It's not much different than his other stuff. Blade 3 is actually more fucked up, in my opinion, than this.
I'll say this much. It seems like... Oh, shit. Have a very squeaky, shrieking chair. Or technically, it's my boyfriend's office chair that's really squeaky and shrieky and blah. In regards to compare, I'll say this much. Sorry, I need to mute this for a couple minutes.
Okay. I would just wait until it comes out on DVD or something, because that'll be easier to get a hold of.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's fine.
I looked at some of the comments there. To be honest, I have a very limited frame of reference for productions Del Toro's worked on. To be honest, the couple that stood out, or I started seeing his name pop up more often. Book of Life. I knew about that one because of Jorge Gutierrez. I probably really butchered his name. I hate the fact I did, but I digress. I was a huge fan of El Tigre back in 2007. As soon as I saw that he was working on this particular movie, I went out of my way to see it in theaters because I'm a huge fan of the guy.
But yeah, Del Toro does a lot of really good work, and if you're into the very fantasy genre, that's who I would definitely recommend you to watch. Especially if you're into cartoons, Cartoon Critic, you could actually start out with the Hellboy animated movies. That's right, there's 2 Hellboy movies that are animated, and then you can move up to the live-action ones to kind of wean yourself into it, because there are a lot of good live-action movies that are very geeky and fun that don't get enough love, in my opinion. There's a cat meowing at my door.
The only reason I brought up Book of Life and such was Del Toro doesn't seem too afraid to throw his hat in the ring or really get involved with more experimental or different projects. Like, you have Pacific Rim, which is over the top, kind of campy and goofy. He had his hand in that. He has the Netflix original series Troll Hunters. I'd highly recommend that. And he was involved, or he...
Crimson Peak is another one that he did recently that's more experimental.
I need to check that out. Another one that I've seen his name attached to, or that he helped produce, not sure how much he was involved with the actual story and such, was Spliced. That one was back in 2009, and it's really out there.
Let me make sure that I'm thinking about the one that I'm thinking about. Yeah. Let me double check, though, because I am... Oh yeah, he was he promoted it because he really liked the story idea behind it, and he helped with some of the special effects on it. That movie is wild.
Yeah, I tried to watch that the other day. Couldn't get through the entire thing because I reached a certain scene in it, and just no.
Yeah, you had to know about that. That scene bothered me too. So at one point, I just would let it play. I went and made myself some lunch, and then I came back and watched the rest. And no, I didn't ask you if you like cartoons. I said if you want to get into stuff like the live action movies, you need to watch the Hellboy cartoons and wean yourself into the live action stuff. Makes things easier because it will help widen your interest a little bit.
Also, going to remain pretty vague about Spliced, since...
Yeah, Splice,
some of the topics we covered here with Shape of Water, that's incredibly tame compared to this one.
Yeah, because at least that stuff was consensual and not incestuous.
Since this keeps getting brought up, I'll just go ahead and lay out what the controversial scene is. Well, it's pretty much a couple of rogue scientists performing genetic experiments. They want to bring human DNA into it. They get to the point where they produce a chimera. That's a human experiment. Her DNA has been spliced with several different creatures, so she's not exactly human. And the way it's set up, these 2 scientists are pretty much parental figures to her, or parents. The premise itself is pretty interesting, and it touches on a pretty interesting topic overall. Just kind of iffy execution. I'll admit I'm pretty mixed. The controversial scene is that as the creature gets older, like when she reaches late adolescence, young adulthood, she ages very quickly. There's a scene where she pretty much gets it on with her adoptive father. And it's
a lot.
That's where I stopped. It's not incredibly graphic or anything. It's more just the context. It's the context of it that makes it so unnerving.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd just go ahead and roll out the elephant in the room because we kept dancing around it. I brought it up. Might as well just say what it is.
It's definitely more wild than The Shape of Water for sure, because that touches on a whole nother spiel that not many films tend to touch on. Like, I think the only other film that I can remember touching on that besides Ghost in the Shell is The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when it was talking about like human rights and stuff like that for the medical field.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's fair to really do any kind of compare and contrast with Shape of Water and Splice, though, because Splice, they're going full in for a controversial subject and subject matter. You're supposed
And Shape
to take
of Water was
seriously.
supposed to be happy and kind of like uplifting subject matter.
Pretty much.
It's like, hey, guess what? It doesn't matter if you're disabled or, you know, damaged or whatever, because a god is literally going to love you no matter what religion you're from. Or even if you're atheist. It doesn't matter. You're still loved. Fuck haters. Which is literally the theme of it in a nutshell.
And I'm
That's why I
sorry
liked
for
it.
that horrible, ridiculous, windy tangent. The only reason I even brought it up was to say that Del Toro is not afraid to get behind or
Oh,
throw
no.
his hat in the ring for interesting ideas. If he thinks an idea is interesting, he's gonna go
do
for it.
it.
So
He's going to do it. Like, to be honest, I'm surprised he wasn't the one that got a hold of Ghost in the Shell. Because that sort of thing is up his alley.
true that, especially when you have an entire live-action movie about people running around in giant mechas. Pretty much. Trying to remember Pacific Rim. Would live-action Gurren Lagann be that description, or am I off base here?
Pacific Rim is more like Evangelion, actually.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very, very limited with how many mecha anime I know.
Yeah, there's like only 3 that I know, so I feel. But yeah, it's very much like Evangelion, and that, oof. But no, Shape of Water was really good because it liked to touch on subjects, but it did it in a manner that was very gentle. It wasn't as far out there as some other films have done. And I'm really glad he did, because it's just like a lot of people, like, okay, so the 3 people who tend to hate this type of movie are usually like, what's the best, loser men who can't get women anyway, so they complain about the fishman getting romanced. Super duper, like, social justice warrior, gotta complain about everything, youngins. And Christian women. Like, heavy duty Christian conservative women. The Shape of Water actually took place in the 1960s during the Cold War. But yeah, that's the only people I see complaining about it. Or people who are like so far out there that they've basically turned in on themselves and they're seeing their own asshole from the inside.
Oh my god, that description. Just, I mean, I want this as a quote for a very controversial and appropriate t-shirt that I could never wear to work.
Well, it's like I said, I've seen a lot of discourse on Tumblr, and a lot of it is just people who are nitpicking to nitpick. And then you have the women who are like, oh, this is disgusting, portraying the government as evil and stuff. It never portrayed the government as evil. It portrayed the government as dumb and not knowing what they're doing, yes. But like the general who gave Strickland the talk down, he wasn't evil or anything, you know? There's a serious matter going on. It just so happens that the thing that, you know, they're using is a sentient being that needs to be saved. It's not like as if they went out of their way to know that this thing is sentient, because they have no idea it's sentient. No one wants to listen to the smart people in the room like Dimitri, who know it's sentient. Because I'm pretty sure if the general or anyone had found out it was sentient before Strickland got involved, they would have been teaching it language and, you know, have been much kinder to it. And, like, you know, it's little stuff like that. And they're just like, oh, you're portraying the government as evil. Nah, 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 nah. Or, you're giving girls bad examples. This is a Stockholm Syndrome story. Nah, 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 nah. I'm just like, oh my gosh, shut the fuck up.
I have no idea where they're getting that particular impression from.
Like I said, they're up their own assholes. And they all stink, yes. I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm just like, it just amazes me sometimes. It's like, I think, like, I know it exists, but then when I see it, I'm just like, well, damn. It deserves the awesome.
Oh, sorry.
No, continue. It's fine.
In regards to the scene between the General and Strickland, I got the impression that both of them were really frustrated at the end of their, like, you have the general idea of the Cold War. Tensions are high. They pretty much see the asset as
an animal.
And this is their major advantage against the Russians. This is their big moment. This is something that could be a major game changer. That's how the general sees it. He sees it as, my top man isn't performing the way he should be. There's something going on here. The conversation between them is really tense. I didn't necessarily see it as evil. I saw it as more like the most extreme kind of conversation, or the I'm going to cut you if you don't get this done kind of conversation. Like, think about a manager and a top performing employee. And the employee is going through a rough patch. There's a great big project. There's a lot on the line if they don't succeed with this. And if they fail, it's a major loss for the company. So imagine a manager in that position. He pulls this employee aside, and it's a conversation like that, for lack of a better description. You can see where the general's coming from, why he's coming down so harshly. And Strickland, that you can understand why that's what makes him snap.
Oh,
he's at the end of his rope, and since you brought up the idea that he's suffering from depression, that just brings another dimension to him slowly unraveling and unwinding and going to the extremes and extents that he does. Just adds another dimension to that. I'll be honest, I sensed that there was something a bit off about Strickland, but I didn't really pick it up until you mentioned it as we've been discussing and looking at this. But thinking about that scene now, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, well, as someone who actually suffers from bipolar disorder, that's how I'm able to recognize it. Is like, I could see the pattern to where he's, like I said, wanting to do better and everything, because, at the beginning of the movie, he's kind of a dick, but he's, no more of a dick than most average people you meet nowadays. And he slowly degrades as the stress starts to build. And when I was noticing the books and stuff he was reading, that's kind of how I was like, oh, it's this. But yeah, I was just like, and people were saying, you're trying to make the government look evil, whatever. And I'm just like, no. The government is, a business, and that's what they showed it as. Like I said, if Dimitri could have, shown the government and the general and everyone that the creature was sentient, that the asset was sentient, things would have played out much differently. Because then they'd be trying to hurry up and teach him language and everything, so there's a communication without the barrier, and they can get all the information they could possibly need. And that's something that a lot of people who are complaining about it missed. And, like, there's another complaint saying that it's ableist for how they treat Eliza, saying, oh, only monsters want other monsters. I'm like, she literally ran off with a god. Like, take me instead then, bitch. I'll go with him.
Since you brought that up, the entire point of why this is such a romantic and touching movie is that she relates to this creature because he's in a similar boat to what she is.
Yep.
They figure out a way to communicate with each other. She is one of the things that makes Eliza stand out is that she's one of the few representations in media of someone who can't expressly speak, but there's so much expressed from the way she conducts herself to little scenes like her tapping her feet along with the Shirley Temple movie, just showing that there's other ways to show character and personality and how she carves out a role for herself in society, what her wants, hopes, and dreams are. The big reason why this is such a touching romance is that she connects with somebody. She connects with somebody that technically is in a similar situation to what she is. So I don't see I see this as empowering, or a love story or a love story that would be very, very welcome to see more interpretations of. Okay, you're just reminding me why I don't look up this stuff on Tumblr or other platforms, because I like this movie. I don't just.
Well, it's okay. I got into a fight with a guy who has a PhD in disabilities, and stuff like that, and I was just like, I'm actually disabled, and the fact you're making these assumptions is fucking offensive. Because the reason that this movie was made was for people like us. It wasn't made for y'all neurotypical people to sit down and make judgments like, hey, because some of the points I could agree with, and one of them was the cat, and one of them was wanting to see more communication between her and the asset. That was fine. I could get that. I agree with that. Yes, more fluff scenes. But then he was saying it was ableist because of it being a monster, and I'm just like, oh my god. What the fuck? And the thing is, with his review, this particular person's review, is that you could replace the names of Giles, Zelda, Eliza, and all of them with Ariel, Prince Eric, and the like, and have a review on why The Little Mermaid is a bad movie. So it was just really redundant to read that, and then to be told to shut up because you don't know any better while you're one of the people that the movie was aimed at, and one of the people he's trying to speak up for, quote unquote. I have epileptic seizures and lupus. I also have chronic fatigue, costochondroiditis. I have a reversed neck that is crushing my spinal cord. I have scoliosis. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I have bipolar disorder and PTSD. Yes, I am disabled, but I look normal, much like Eliza does. And I'm considered disabled, but not enough to be provided help like Eliza. I'm an undesirable that functions in the real world like Eliza. And that's why when I saw this review, it really pissed me off. I'm just like, I get you want to help. There was one reviewer who talked about it, and she was talking about from her own personal experience. So she wasn't talking about the movie in a bad light. She's like, this is why it bothers me. This is the experience I've had and how I think it could have been portrayed better, speaking from a personal place, which, is fine. That is fine. But if you're going to try and be someone with a PhD speaking over someone else who is in the same boat as Eliza, there's a problem in society when that happens. It wasn't necessarily me being angry. It's just that when I start listing stuff, I sound more intense than I mean to be, cartoon critic.
You brought up a point about people wanting more interaction between Eliza and the asset. I kind of want to bring up that point and elaborate on it a bit more. I honestly agree. They showed some, and that was the core of the movie. I'll be honest. I would have liked to see more scenes between them and showing more of just how they bounce off of each other, just more meat to that. They showed enough that yes, it's fairly convincing, but I want a little bit more of this. This is incredibly charming. I like both of them. I want to know more. How do they connect? What are their mutual interests? One is music. It would have been fantastic to maybe see a sequence where they're having a discussion about preferred music. Eliza brings in a couple of different samples and stuff, and the asset starts nodding or just showing some that he prefers and others that he's not too keen on. Just something like that.
Yeah, see, that's something I was able to agree with in that particular review. That's fine. Stuff like that I can agree with. Like I said earlier, I wish that it had been a little bit more fleshed out than the film was. Stuff like that is fine. I just have an issue when people try to make things out of things that aren't, big deals. It's just someone was complaining that it was too simple of a film. But I'm just like, it's too happy of an ending. It was a sellout. I'm like, it's a fairy tale for a reason. It's a modern fairy tale at that. Do you think that he was going to eat her alive once she hit the water? Yikes.
I'm sorry. Just yeah, yeah, building up all this happy kind of very romantic tension, even getting to the point where you have a fairly sensual scene between the two, and then at the end they hit the water after the tense confrontation with the big bad, and he eats her.
Dumb.
I'm sorry. I think I have kind of a black sense of humor, but just the idea of that.
Oh, trust me, it's fine. It's just that really frustrated me with that one thing, because it's just like, oh, you're not actually having any issues with your health or whatever because you seem too healthy, blah blah blah. I'm just like, that was the entire point of the film. The only reason Eliza was looked down on was because she was mute, not because she was unable to work or anything, but because she couldn't speak. I'm in the same boat. Don't freaking look at me and say that I can't have an opinion on this just because I don't have a PhD in the area. Sorry, I got really pissed off at that, because it's just like, for God's sake. It's like with the Ghost in the Shell movie. Sure, it wasn't the best. I can understand why people say it wasn't the best. It was very rushed. I get that. But for the love of God, the original movie creator came in and made all the approvals and stuff for special effects and actors and actresses. Let the old man have it. Jesus. I'm like, damn it. And my favorite part with films like this is just like when people say, oh, you can't like it because of X, Y, and Z. And that's exactly the point that the movie's trying to make. Like, just a quick riff, since Ghost in the Shell was brought up. The entire point of the live action movie was that you can't erase someone's identity, because that is, it's a terrible thing to do. And it talks about cultural appropriation and why it's bad. That's why they chose a white actress and made her Asian in her past, was specifically so they could touch on that point. Poorly, sloppily, but they did. And that's why people were complaining, oh, it's cultural appropriation to have a white woman playing an Asian character. The thing is that the entire point of even like the original manga series was that she didn't have any sort of clue who she was. And it wasn't until later volumes that she was told she was an Asian woman. And it's like, and I think it's like there's a sequel to the series, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it outright says, the major outright says, she got a new body that was Asian because she didn't like the one she was in before because it wasn't who she was. And it's just like, context is very important, and people tend to not think about that. So it's very depressing.
Sorry.
You okay?
Yeah, what?
I just got very intense, and I know that that's very unusual for me usually because I'm not very vocal of a person.
You're okay, man.
Yeah, it's just like context. Context is very important, cartoon critic. It's very important. Like, it's okay to like kind of say you wish it had been for this or this or that, but don't like go out of your way to be a total dick about stuff. You can point out flaws without needing to be assholes. It's like, granted, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, but I feel like sometimes we need to stop and think about how we form these opinions and word it a little bit better, even in my case, I'm just like, man.
I'd say you touched on the core of... I'd say this is a conversation or a mandatory seminar or something somebody should undertake before they become a critic of any kind. Like so many cartoon critics, anime reviewers, whatever kind of, even analysts. Come on, man.
Chill just a little bit. I mean, it's great to get passionate, but man, be very critical about what you're doing. Like, that's why you're a critique, a criticizer. You're supposed to be critical.
Yeah, there's just certain lines in the sand you don't cross. Like, I know every reviewer or critic out there, no matter how esteemed they are or how good they are, there is going to be a point where they cross the line and say something that they should have, or review that they could have done better. And this is one of, I guess what I'm trying to get to with this is that after they make said thing, they need to have the self-awareness to be able to take a few steps back and realize that they crossed that line. That this doesn't continue to be a trend in other videos or stuff that they make.
Well, yeah, even with like Bailey J, she made a video about art block saying it was a bunch of crap, and she worded it very poorly. And the thing is like, if you were to watch that video back when it was up and you had it on mute and you were just reading her subtitles, you could read it in the grade A, under A voice. So, you know, being critical, but having a very lighthearted feel about it. But then when you listen to how she's speaking about it, it came across more of a bitch than she meant to, you know? And it's just like, she's trying to be like, oh, you can go out there and do better because I know you can do better, versus how she made it sound with her tone of voice. Everyone's allowed one fuck up like that, in my opinion. Everyone's allowed one. And it's just like, And I don't think people are like, I know with my new video that came out, that is called The Biggest Art Tip You Need, and the thumbnail says Stop Caring About Others. That entire video is mainly just me riffing about stop giving a shit about people who aren't adding to the conversation, who aren't trying to be helpful and point out actual issues, because their opinions really don't matter. And it's okay to get upset about them and want to rebuke them, but you don't have to. You know, because it's not anything that's going to add on to you other than stress. And once you stop caring about those sort of things, you know, a great burden is lifted from your shoulders, and it will help you improve in any aspect of your life. Like I said, yeah, you can have a discussion about it if it's worthwhile having a discussion about, like with the thing that I just said about the people saying that the movie was ableist. That's fine. But, you know, once you've had the conversation, that's it. You don't need to worry about it anymore. I haven't yet. Not yet. Thankfully, I haven't fucked up that bad.
Oh, I've screwed up pretty royally.
That's okay. We love you.
Where I screwed up royally was that, okay, I'm probably going to get some flack for bringing this up, but I'm going to own up to it anyway. The Jared Shapiro thing. I tried to amend for that by making a Tumblr post by pointing out what some people at Cartoon Network said was the case with it. Not going to go into that, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it happens. Like I said, everyone's allowed to get upset every once in a while. It's just that when we can, we need to stop and think instead of just outright being an asshole to be an asshole. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like one of the reasons I can never get into the brony community for analysts and stuff, even though, you know, I had a pretty good footing for a while, was because you either had to be super happy or you had to be like a super bitch. And I couldn't do that because I'm pretty much a middle ground. I can look at the flaws and be like, okay, yeah, these exist and that's fine. They can be improved on. But here's also some of the really good stuff that we need to focus on that's getting brushed under the rug.
Actually, I'd say that's reason to enter the community if you only see two polarizing kinds of personalities. Bulldoze in there anyway.
Oh, trust me, with what's happened recently, I don't want to bulldoze in there immediately.
Oh, I'm just saying, at that particular point in time, there's a need. There's a niche right there. Yeah. Neutral ground. It'd probably be a breath of fresh air, refreshing. I'm not saying you'd have as big an audience as somebody who trended towards one or the other. Just that there's...
Well, yeah, that's why I like reviewers like Firebrand and Silverquill, is because and Mad Munchkin, is because they are that sort of medium ground. And that's the reason I like watching the artist Holly Brown when she was posting, is because she can be very blunt, but she's also very supportive because she has faith that people can do better. And even though with how she words it being a little bit blunt and kind of mean, you can tell that she wants you to do better because she knows you can. She's like basically an asshole version of Sidon, I guess, if that makes sense. She's like, yeah, this sucks, but I know you can do better. You got this.
Odd description, but... I'm going to bring this up right now. I don't really want this particular discussion to delve any further. A couple of specific people were brought up, but I don't want this to go any further into, I think this particular reviewer or content creator is shit, or that this fandom community is shit. Not going there.
Nah. It's like any other fandom. It's got its good, it's got its bad, it's got its meh. You know, it's just like, we need more people who are even grounded, because I feel like YouTube, the way it's going, is that you have to be one or the other to get any sort of view. It's like you have to post a lot and have one straight up personality. It's like, I know Shane Dawson tends to play the goofball in his older videos, but he's trying to be more of like a person now. This way people can get to know him and know who he is, and he's receiving a lot of flack for that. So, but I just, with movies like this that are very important to a specific demographic, we need to stop and think about what we're doing. Because there's going to be a point where someone's going to say something, or someone's going to do something, and it's going to have really bad ramifications. There's either going to be a lash out, or someone's going to hurt themselves because they're basically going to be made to feel like garbage over it. And this has been a case with a lot of people. And I just don't want to see any more of that in the community, because if you're someone who's speaking over someone that you're talking about, so say in the case of The Shape of Water, there's people saying, oh, it's ableist because of this, this, and that for disabled people, while them themselves aren't in the situation that Eliza is, and they're speaking over the people who are, that's a big problem. There needs to be more communication and more voicing and actual conversation and constructive criticism than just the, oh, this is bad and I'm an expert and here's why I know and blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Sorry for awkward silence there.
I'm going to say something in the chat because the chat usually disappears. I want to say this right now. I'm not going to say it on the screen because we said not to. So give me just a half second. And it's okay with awkward silence.
Okay. Honestly, don't really have anything to further add or contribute to this particular conversation, so I'm going to start winding things down.
Yes.
Wrapping up.
It is a very recommended movie, even though it is rated R and has a few scenes that some people might find unsavory. It is beautiful cinematography and practical special effects. It's very well written, even though I wish the movie had done a little bit more, but I can understand time constraint and budget constraint, unfortunately. And when it comes out on DVD, you should totally support them and buy it.
Yes. Alrighty, going to end that right here. One more reminder about that convention from the beginning of the podcast. I'm going to be putting relevant links in the description, such as the Facebook page and where you can find other updates. Facebook page and Tumblr. This particular convention is taking place on March 24th, 2018. It's
9 a.m. to 11 p.m. at this Millard Oakley STEM Center at Tennessee Technological University.
It's an anime convention.
It's a fandom convention.
Okay, it's a fandom convention. Alpaca will be there. A few other names will be there. And there will be other updates as time goes on. Hope you have a good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And
see you later.
Yep. Good night, everybody.